welcome back. You're tuning into a Feel Good Breakfast Show. This is Expresso right here on SABC3. It's a Tuesday, which means it's time for some health discussions. Now, the Biopsychosocial Model was developed decades ago by Drs. George Engel and John Romano. Now, this model suggests that if you want to fully understand a person's medical condition, you need to consider not only the biological factors, but the psychological and social factors as well.
Wow. And of course, here to tell us more about that is and unpack what the biopsychosocial model is and how to achieve holistic health, which is what we're all going for, is our trusted medical professional, Dr. Darren Green. And of course, our musical guest, Kyle Deitch, otherwise known as Dr. Deitchman, is going to be joining us a little bit later on to chat more about this. Dr. Darren Green, how are you doing?
Fabulous, thank you.
There's some big words thrown in here this morning.
Yes.
Biopsychosocial. Like,
sounds quite intense.
Take me an entire year to just get comfortable with that word.
Wow.
What exactly is this biopsychosocial model exactly?
It basically refers to your health and your wellness as an individual being comprised of a quotient of all three of those components. In other words, there's a biological component to your health, there's a psychological component, and a social component to your health. And what the model actually proposed decades ago, which has now become quite accepted amongst therapists and the health industry across the world, is that you can't separate those three entities. They're so interwoven and interlinked when it comes to your health and your wellness that what happens biologically can affect what's happening to you psychologically and vice versa. What's happening in your social networks and your relationships can cause physical changes in your body as well.
Sure.
And there's some practical examples I'll allude to a little bit later, just obviously depicting that.
How exactly is this model incorporated in a clinical practice, though?
Yes, so when you see someone basically arriving at your practice and you need to assess whether the physical complaint that they're coming in with is actually due to, let's say, you've got heartburn.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, it must just be reflux disease or an ulcer perhaps.
Yeah.
And then you start spending time with them about changes in their life socially or even psychologically. They might be under tremendous stress. With the fight or flight reflex or response in the human body to stay alive and to survive, your body does certain things physically, like pump out more acid in the stomach, for example. What happens is because you're anxious psychologically and under some stress, you skip meals. So your tummy's empty with loads and loads of acid, for example, pouring into the stomach, causing inflammation and hurting and injuring the inner lining of the stomach, leading to gastritis and ulcers, for example. That's the term, a stress ulcer. That in turn can start bleeding and you can start losing blood through the gastrointestinal tract, and you could become anemic and tired. So you've got psychological stress, a bit of anxiety. You might feel physically drained because your iron levels drop, or you might just have early signs of depression associated with that as well.
I think it's so important that we look at all these three different spheres because, like you said, they're so interwoven, and it's very interesting once again just to realize that there's never just one fix. You know, it's a holistic thing, and this is what we asked after this morning. We are going to be continuing that conversation with Dr. Darren Green. You can always call us 0214309881 if you do have any questions or queries, but we are going to be continuing in terms of how the body is able to function optimally to reach that point of holistic health as well. Dr. Darren, thank you very much. We'll be back.
Sure.
Back with Dr. Darren Green. It is Medical Tuesdays, and we're unpacking how the psychosocial or biopsychosocial model can be used to achieve optimal holistic health. And of course, that is what we all want in this day and age. All three of those things are combined to actually make a diagnosis. Is that right?
Yes, so you can obviously spend time with someone listening to their story, and that narrative tells you what's going on in their psychological space, also with their relationships in their social space, in terms of work, etc., as family, and then biologically, and they are very interlinked.
Very, very interwoven as well, and they have an effect on each other as well. So let's focus on the psychological side of things right now. So how can poor psychological health how can that manifest in a kind of in a physical way in your body to either for a positive or even a negative?
100%. So how you relate to the environment, how you relate to circumstances, different situations, depends on the tools that you've acquired over many, many years in dealing with the different types of psychological stress. So you can imagine, given a challenge that takes you out of your comfort zone, your personality type, your persona, your temperament requires you, for example, to address a people around a boardroom table, and you not in any way, obviously, used to that kind of situation, and what kind of psychological stress. The cognitions, the thoughts then start rushing through you. You start worrying about it 2 weeks beforehand. You start having problems with your sleep and insomnia because you're worried about this social part of your anxiety as well. And that psychological stress, you either develop tools to cope with it and how to channel it positively in the right direction, do something about it in terms of implementing, techniques in dealing with it, or you can carry on worrying, and then it will have an effect, a run-on effect. If you're not sleeping, if you're skipping meals, etc., it will start affecting your concentration, your energy levels, etc., and also your ability to then actually cope on the final day with the acute stressor.
You know, Dr. Darren Green, I think a lot of people don't understand how hectic stress is on a human body. I mean, I remember going through a point in my life where it used to manifest itself in different ways in my body, but I didn't realize that it was that. What is a red flag that will indicate to a normal person that there's too much stress in your life?
A great question. So I think the first thing is mood change.
Yeah.
So your tolerance of small things, niggles, your irritability, your frustration tolerance with the people around you in relationships, whether you become snappy, impatient, whether you're there but you're not there, you're not present in your thoughts, you're actually distracted completely by the stresses and not present when people find you inaccessible, even although you're in the room. And then, of course, physically, you'd experience an increased heart rate, often with stress.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, things like a change in your bowel motion can even be affected because you're not eating properly. And then the lack of sleep relates also to many problems, including poor concentration and also appetite changes and weight changes as well.
Wow, it's all a knock-on effect.
So you can definitely see that it's very, very serious. And we are going to be talking about our biopsychosocial model a little bit more in detail. We're going to focus on the biological part of it next. So stick around for that discussion. After the break, we'll be back.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's Expresso right here on SABC3. We're talking about the biopsychosocial model and, of course, how it can be used to achieve holistic health. We've got Dr. Darren Green and also Dr. Deichman in the house, otherwise known as Kyle Deitch. Hey, I don't know if you guys knew this, but this is a triple threat over here. Not only is he a talented musical artist, a fashionista of note, but also a medical practitioner, darling. So good to have you in the house.
Chiropractor.
Hey.
Thank you.
Let me tell you.
Great timing for me to be on
Great timing,
World
yeah,
Health Day.
indeed, man.
I'm even getting hot just sitting next to this talented individual here.
Oh my goodness. Anyways, let's focus on the biological side of our biopsychosocial model. Can we continue, Carl?
Yeah.
Can you please stop whatever's going on here right now? Okay, cool. So the human body, of course, it houses different systems, different ways it starts working. How can we go about making sure that the body functions correctly, firing on all systems, on all cylinders, so to speak?
Yeah, I think if you look at all the different systems involved in keeping your health optimal, in order to maintain what's called homeostasis, which is that perfect balance between those systems, maintaining an environment that is conducive to the normal day-to-day metabolic processes and functioning of the body, you need to give it certain things. Every car needs a maintenance plan, and so does your body. Whether it's a Rolls Royce or an old crook, it needs to be maintained. And that means it needs sleep, it needs fuel, it obviously needs tools in terms of stress reduction that I mentioned early on, and it needs happiness in terms of social interactions and relationships. No man is an island, and people do better. They survive, proven through the ages, in groups rather than as individuals. And that's why social relationships are so important.
Yeah. We all know that the skeletal frame holds the body together, but why is chiropractic care so important? Dr. Deichman.
I think these days movement and biomechanical sort of things like stretching, joint manipulation, the nerve firing, just the range of motion in between the certain joints of the spine. And I think the main problem in today's day and age is getting physical activity in, number one. Us being slouched the whole time, ending up with tight hip flexors, tight mid-backs. And stretch classes are becoming like a huge thing as well, and worldwide phenomenons. I think also another big problem is balancing the acidity in our body and the diets, and this is strongly related to stress, which can lead to back pain and that sort of thing, headaches. So yeah, the body is tightly knit with the nerve functions, with the stress functions, and with the social functions as we.
And if your skeletal frame is not in a way or conducive to kind of support the body in all its processes as well with regards to your nerve function, I mean, you can't function holistically as well. So you touched on diet as well. Yeah. How important is diet naturally when it goes into making sure that you achieve that kind of holistic health?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is understanding that the brain needs fuel and nutrients to actually drive some of the processes. But as science is developing and we're learning so much about the human body, we're discovering that levels of control exist even in the gut, for example, that people are now postulating that it has its own brain. The gut has its own form of memory and brain in terms of controlling enzyme release, absorption rates, and also things like the pH and acidity and so forth. So very interesting that the brain was thought only to respond to glucose before. And now with things like ketogenic diets and ketones, we've now realized that ketone bodies are also an active source of fueling brain function and nerve cells. And that is why people that go through going onto a ketogenic diet struggle initially for the first 2 weeks. They have what's called keto flu. But then the ketone bodies act as a source of fuel, whereas before we thought glucose was the only source of fuel that supplied the brain cells. So.
Wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we've got our medical practitioners in the house, Dr. Darren Green, Dr. Deichman's here. We are talking about the biopsychosocial, that word, biopsychosocial model, and of course how we can use it to achieve holistic health. We'll be back with more of this chat after news.
So much, Zoe. Right now we are continuing with our medical discussion on your Tuesday morning. It's all about achieving holistic health. We are focusing on the biopsychosocial model with our medical practitioners, the professionals, Dr. Darren Green and Carl Deitch.
Yes.
Doctor
In the house.
this morning. Listen, we have a caller on the line. Hello, Shakira from Kimberley.
Shakira.
Hello, Shakira. Please will you let us know what your question is for our medical practitioners this morning?
Morning, doctor. Morning, everybody there. The thing is, you gave example of having exercises when you're stressing, right? And when you're going through this, because basically I'm like watching and this is what I'm going through. But if I exercise too much, I end up with a lot of pains, like joint pains and leg pains. So what can I do around about that? And then I also suffer from ulcer.
Okay, from an ulcer.
Okay. So I think first thing with exercise is we all want to turn over a new forest and start exercising.
Yes.
Come January, everyone wants to do that. The problem is if you go too hard too soon and don't pace yourself and condition the joints and the muscles to an increased workload over time, that's when you end up with injuries. And conditioning, unfortunately, involves you gradually increasing the workload. And I mean, Carl will know a lot more, obviously, about that.
We call them the weekend warriors.
There we go.
So I think every person's activities that are best suited for your own body it's very unique and it's individualized. You can't be doing what someone else is doing. Maybe for you, I would suggest like a less impact sort of exercise regime. And there is some soft tissue work you can do to prevent that joint pain when it comes on post-exercise. Some dry needling, strapping, mobilizations, and I think light stretches, and also watching her diet if she's struggling with ulcers is also important for her. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, with regards to her particular problem, the joint pain that she's saying, I didn't catch exactly how frequently she exercises, but can it be just a high level of toxicity in the body that manifests in the pain in the joints or what, because of maybe a diet issue?
Yeah, sure. You get different dietary causes of joint pain, like, for example, increased uric acid levels from gout. But certain foodstuffs, and that's the whole science going forward of putting fuel in your body, involves food that is pro-inflammatory, food that contributes towards inflammation in the body. So certainly, and with that ulcer, possibly even a bit of stress, one would want to look at things that aggravate that ulcer to become worse.
Closing thoughts about achieving holistic health, doctors?
I think for me it's a steady day-to-day process. I don't think we can wake up one day and be like, wow, this is going to be me, I'm going to be holistic today, and then
Yeah.
tomorrow it's completely different. It's about finding a manageable routine that works for you, both what you're putting in and then how you're expending your energy. And just staying positive and surrounding yourself with good energy and happy people.
Here. Couldn't agree more. Dr. Darren?
Absolutely. Balance is key. And obviously educate yourself as much as you can. We are privileged to have so much information now on all three of those aspects in our lives in terms of wellness. And obviously include people around you in your journey.
Yeah.
It's much easier with comrades than it is alone.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much to our doctors, Dr. Deichmann, Cal Deitch, and of course Dr. Darren Green. It's not just about taking a pillicky. There's a lot involved in making sure you achieve health. And it's, of course, our biopsychosocial model that we unpacked today.